Hello everyone and welcome. Sit back, relax, and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for news stories from Yellowcat. Write your favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Let's get started. People who filed lawsuits against well-known huge corporations. Why'd you do it and what happened? Not me, but to my mom. My mom started having strokes around 2005. In the end, she had a total of 15. She went to all of Nebraska's big hospitals, but nothing helped. It was a secret to the doctors. We called the Mayo Clinic in Minnesota. Well, after going back and forth about 10 to 15 times in 2 years, it was a depression drug that caused the strokes, we finally found out. The medicine company was sued by us around 2008, and we finally got our settlement payment. It was around $36,000, but with lawyer fees, it ended up to be $19,000. Good amount of money. Didn't necessarily sue. I acquired a Ford Lightning from a large Roseville, California dealership. After turning 21, I got a DUI. I lost my job and sold the truck. I checked what CarMax would sell it for. They bid $400. 1999 Ford Lightning Supercharged financing cost me roughly $16,000. How could this be? CarMax said the truck had been registered as a lemon. Returning the truck to the dealership, I wanted my trade-ins. I traded a Toyota Matrix and a Kawasaki Ninja for the truck. The cars were sold months prior. They offered to remove my truck. I said I'd see them in court. A few days later, they told me they couldn't give me my cars back, but would pay off the debt and offer me private party value for both trade-ins. Yeah, I accepted. I received a $20,000 check. The money went to the DUI bills, lawyers, a cheap $3,000 Ford Focus, and debt repayment. I sued Sears. I took my car there to get the oil changed about 6 years ago because I didn't feel like doing it myself that day. Had lunch with a friend. When I got back, the jerk who changed my oil had fun with my car and crashed it into a palm tree. It was added up. Turns out the guy was high on illegal substance and had prior felony weapons and illegal substance charges. The reason I sued was because of how things were treated. First, I had to fight tooth and nail with Sears store management to get a rental car the day it happened. I needed my car for work and one of their employees put me out of a car. In the end, they rented me a car for 1 day until I could get in touch with Sears Insurance Company and get a rental car. This brings me to the second part of my nightmare. I tried calling Sears' insurance company many times, but they never called me back. I never got to talk to a real person who could help me. My insurance company couldn't even get in touch with anyone, so they paid for the rental car because that was part of my policy. But they didn't cover that much, so I had to pay for it myself. I rented for a month. The frame was completely effed on my car, plus exterior and drivetrain damage, so they declared it a total loss requiring $14,000 in repair. The estimated value was $16,000. I found a lawyer, which was a pain in the A. No lawyers wanted to take my case because I was not injured in the accident. In the end, I was able to get a lawyer who actually dealt with wrongdoing to take my case. I ended up not actually taking Sears to court. We were able to settle outside of court. For writing a few letters warning Sears, the lawyer only charged me $250. I got about $25,500. I know this wasn't the company's fault, but since he worked for Sears, they are responsible for their workers. I never chased after the guy because he seemed pretty poor and I knew I wouldn't get anything from him. My dad sued Borders. When he was going into the store, the wind blew out an automatic door and hit him in the head. He got $7,000 and bought a car. The day was very windy and there was a show by the front doors. The wind had blown something to the ground and my dad was going to put it back where it belonged on the display because he's a nice guy. That's when the door kicked open and hit him in the head. There was no reason for the door to open this way. The door should only open when there is an emergency because it was a swinging door. The wind had made a vacuum that pulled the door out. That happened at the worst possible time. I don't know if it always did that when there were strong winds or what. My parents live 20 minutes from the Borders, but at the time, I lived only 1 minute away. My mom called me and told me to get to the border right away because there had been an accident. She didn't know how bad it was, but it was a head injury. When I ran out to my car, I could hear the ambulance. It hurt so much to know that the ambulance you hear in the distance is for your dad. I was filled with pure fear right away. I get there, and he's conscious, and the paramedics are helping him. Still, it was strange. The people who worked at the gates stayed away. They must be instructed to do so. Also, my dad wasn't a crazy, angry jerk who was yelling at everyone. He's a teddy bear. No one talked to him or us. Bizarre. He thought it was just a bad mistake and didn't see any reason to sue. The next day, though, no one from the store called to see how he was doing. He said, if someone calls to ask how I'm doing, I won't sue, but I'm sure they'll make a courtesy call. After 2 weeks, there's still no call, so he talks to a lawyer. Their lawyer said that they don't contact you at all because they think you're going to sue. Wow, okay, good. I'm sure the border's lawyers saw the security video of him hitting his head while trying to fix their stupid screen and said, let's settle. Our family doesn't like to get into fights, but they were jerks to us when my dad hurt his head, so F them. Border said they would make the door stronger after the deal, but they never did. After 2 years, they closed, and the store is now a huge border-style liquor shop. I think about it every time I go through those same doors on windy days. I sued the Miley Cyrus via BCBG Max Azria clothing line about 5 years ago for copyright infringement. Someone in their visual design team took a picture of me and used it as a t-shirt design. The shirt could be bought at Walmarts all over the United States. Right away, I sent them a letter telling them to stop and asked for $5,000 so I could forget about it. I also let them know that if they didn't participate, I would be happy to bring a lawyer. They laughed at me and made fun of me, then offered me $100. That's why I got an IP lawyer on a contingency fee basis. He sent them a very scary letter telling them what my rights were, which made them understand that I meant business. The company begged him not to take them to court because they had been having a hard time with money lately and asked that we settle. The first price my lawyer suggested was $20,000. In the end, we agreed on $11,500 plus a $1,500 gift card to any of their shops. They could have stopped at $5,000, but they took a chance and paid more than twice that amount. I got 2/3 of our winnings, and the attorney got a third as fee for helping me out. After a few months, I had some really cool clothes, a cool new camera, and a good savings account, thank you. I might have taken a year or more if we had said no and taken them to court. I could have received up to $100,000 in damages if I had immediately registered my image with the Copyright Office. I learned my lesson. What did the HOA do that made you hate them? I really hate my HOA, so I ran for the board to try to make things better from the inside. I was chosen along with 2 other new people. Since we were new to the board, we tended to work together on things. At the second meeting, the president quit without warning. After a string of resignations, I became the president of the board all of a sudden. I got emails from people who were upset that their neighbors were parking in their driveway instead of the garage, stepping on someone else's grass, neighbors who didn't like how satellite dishes were being put up in front of their houses, and other things. In most of my emails, I said that's not against the HOA rules. You should talk to that person and be polite by calling them a friend. After a year, another board member who I had added to Facebook while we were both running for office changed her mind about liking my emails. That's why she looked way back in my Facebook post and found 4 posts that weren't great when taken out of context. I'm a veteran, and some of my friends are very wild. I don't say sorry. She sent screenshots of these comments without context to several very vocal members of the neighborhood who then demanded that I be removed. The board got together to ask me to step down. She wasn't there. It's funny that I still live in that area while none of them do. I used to really enjoy going for walks with them in the area past their house, and wave and put on a big fake smile. F those Fs and F the HOA. Our home was in a private mountain neighborhood with a bad HOA. Their main job should have been to keep the roads in good shape and make sure everyone could get water. They had other ideas. Most of the board was made up of part-time residents of the town who saw the mountain as a way to make money because of its location. In the end, they wanted to change it from a private neighborhood to a mountain lodge. Full-time locals didn't want that, and having them there makes it harder for the board to reach its goal. The road crew only had a few steady workers, and the board only cared about the roads at the base of the mountain, which was close to where they lived. Other than that, the roads were bad and got worse every year, even though they said they would fix them up every summer for 5 years. They often didn't do a good job when they did work on certain places, so a lot of the road base that we paid for with our dues was wasted. When we called to find out why they hadn't fixed our roads yet, they said there wasn't any more road base and material available, even though we knew where they kept the piles and saw a lot of it that wasn't being used. They also didn't always plow in the winter, in part because they were lazy and in part for a reason I'll explain later. On top of that, board members selectively implemented rules and fined people they didn't like. They broke the rules too. Our neighborhood was meant to be private. You can't use Airbnb part-time, and weekend board members often rented out their homes to strangers, and other people did the same with their permission. A lot of the time, their guests didn't care about the rules and agreements that everyone else did. They were rude and did a lot of crap. Also, they wouldn't follow the speed limits, and riding their ATVs on our worst roads hurt them even more. There were also rules about how many buildings you could have on your land and where they could be placed. If they liked you, you could put up more than the 3 buildings they allowed, and your plans didn't have to follow the rules they were supposed to. One house had a house and 3 holiday cabins that looked like HOAs and were said to be storage sheds. It's clear that they rented those out. It could take a long time and be inconvenient to get your building plans accepted if they didn't like you. They would look more closely at your measurements and how far you are away from the center line of the road. While some people were able to build 2-story garages, others were not, because that wasn't meant to be allowed. They had something to get rid of slashes. You can only have a certain amount of stuff on your land before it becomes too dangerous for fire. But checks don't happen very often, and warnings are supposed to be sent out before fines are given. They liked the contractor who lived in the neighborhood and owned the local slash store, which was very helpful. So they told people in the neighborhood about his services through Nextdoor. In our neighborhood, he had rivals, but the board would block their ads and post about their services to make room for his. Here's the trick. If someone they didn't like tried to sell and move out, they would do a quick check and let people know they had to fix their damage or pay big fines and risk having liens put on their property. When a person tries to say they weren't told, the board just makes up a fake letter that was sent to them. I must have lost you 2 times. The favorite calls the resident to tell them to shut up about their life and asks, "Oh, you're selling?" This makes the sale more difficult. The slash warning always shows up, and he offers to do it for a ridiculously low price. As soon as he gets the job, they get proof of the deal and the lien is taken off. They pay him money for the slash he brings them from the land. People who live there can also be fined if they can't get it cleared quickly enough and their sale can't go through. They also had a lot of trouble keeping the roads in good shape. People paid the best contractor to clear snow off of people's roads after storms. This was one reason why the road crew we paid for didn't do it very often. He had competitors in the neighborhood who started to get in the way of his style. So the board tells everyone that if a person plows the road wrong, they will be fined for the damage. A fine was given to anyone who wasn't the choice. We were interested to know if they ever gave their own road crew a fine for the damage they caused on our account. They raised dues whenever they thought it was right, and they stole money by giving themselves bonuses, which was against the rules. They also spent money on projects they chose without asking the community what they thought. Example, they fixed up the basement of a community building that no one cared about for close to $10,000. When we saw it for ourselves, we knew the repairs they made were not worth the price tag. This made us think they were probably stealing money. After that, the community chose a full-time local to serve on the board, and that person confirmed that they were giving themselves bonuses without telling anyone. Most of the fines that were given were just ways to get money. This new board member was a lawyer, and he did a detailed review of all the documents and reports that were kept by the HOA. When he collected enough evidence of their machinations, the case was taken to court. They were heavily fined and dishonorably expelled from the board. Thank you for listening to those stories. If you want to see new videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to hit the like button.